All right, I'm really excited today to be with someone I've known actually and crossed paths with over the years at chess tournaments. This man is a legend, honestly, in the New York chess scene. Joshua Colas. I always call you Josh. Are you comfortable with Josh?
I'm comfortable, Josh. Appreciate it,
Okay,
Carson.
so yeah, thank you for sitting down to do this. I'm really excited because I've known of you. We've spoken here and there, but there's a lot I really don't know, and I'm sure the broader chess community doesn't know. So yeah, just really excited to learn about your journey because it's definitely been an interesting one, and yeah, so I really appreciate it. I think let's. I always want to just ask as like a starter, what were your first kind of engagements or interactions with chess? Because I feel like it's different for everyone. And what kind of caught your attention or drew you to the game?
Well, for me, I started at the age of 7, close to 8. And the way I began was through my father. So chess is, a game that's played within my family. And my father was taught by his younger brother, my uncle. And I casually, would spot them playing when I was younger, and that's what drew my interest to the game of chess. At first, I thought it was a game for like adults and not for kids. But there's this annual tournament that most people are aware of, the World Open. This event, I my father took me there when I was around 8 years old, and I saw many kids playing, and that's what's actually drew my attention towards the game. And after that event, that's when I started to work with him on the basics, and he took me to some tournaments that were local, and the rest was history. Yeah.
So it's kind of started as a family affair then. That's pretty cool. It's funny because if you have that family member or that close family member, in your case your dad, that plays is involved in the games, it can be a gift and maybe a curse in some ways if you're not interested, but you caught on and were interested presumably pretty quickly, it sounds like.
Right. Like you just mentioned, it could be a gift or a curse, but thankfully in my case, it was a gift. I just recall my father always telling me, chess is a game that can have a positive impact on my life. And, till this day, I am recognizing it. Chess has done a lot for me. Because as a young black man, I could have chosen to go into sports or other activities, but chess was a game that I really was prone to learning, and had that motivation and discipline to acquire the skills in order to become a better chess player. Yeah.
So you accelerated pretty quickly, at least, I did some research leading up to this, and I knew at one point you actually broke a record that I had as the youngest African American master, and then you crushed that, getting it when you were, I think, 12 years old, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
12
And
years
so
old.
from
Yeah.
some take me from 7 to 12. What did that trajectory look like for you? Because um, you know that's pretty rapid growth, especially for someone that didn't start at like 5. You know what I mean?
Right. I would say during that period, I didn't have any like goals that I personally set between myself and, within the game. I was just playing the game for fun and enjoying the game for what it was. And honestly, when I was around 2100, and I think I was around the age of 11 years old, during this time, I started to, get more competition in the fact that I realized that it's hard to really win the chess game at that level. So during this period, this is where I started to train more. I got my first coach, Alexander Strapunsky. He's a grandmaster who plays locally in New York tournaments, and I worked with him for quite a while, like around a year, and he helped me become a master. And this title of African American, chess master, it was a great achievement at the time. And you were one of my inspirations, honestly, Casa. I remember watching you play in the New York International Tournament, and I was like, "Wow, who's that?" There's someone I could actually look up to, and I remember you did very well. You beat Surya Ganguly that tournament as well. So this was, a motivator for me. And I think soon after I became a master. But honestly, that period was a very special period. I became a master at the Marshall Chess Club. I actually crossed it in December. So of 2012, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or 2010. My memory's shot, but
2010. It was
yeah,
2010.
2010, 2010. But yeah, it was a great time. It was a great
I mean, you're making me blush over here, Josh.
time.
But but yeah, no, I mean, it was truly incredible to kind of, uh, frankly, finally see someone that was basically a peer, albeit a bit younger, but still really a peer at these tournaments that were kind of higher stakes events. Because for so long, I felt like there was no one that looked like me, and it was cool to see kind of at the same time, uh, yourself, Justice Williams, and then James Black as well, kind of all come to the fore. And it always, my impression was always that you guys were all kind of lumped together. And in some ways, it was, I think, just a product of alliteration. You guys all had names that start with a J, and you're also around all, closely together in age. Um, how did you see that kind of coupling between yourself, Justice, and James as you were kind of climbing through the ranks? When did you start to notice them, or vice versa? Was it something that you actually kind of felt their presence as well? I know I'm asking you like three or four questions there, but they're all kind of related to you guys were almost always a contingent, and I don't know if that was manufactured or whether that was uh, kind of uh, actually the case.
Right. Um, I would say the group, the three J's, right? James, Justice, and Josh. Yeah, it was something unique for sure. It was like I would say for the most part, the way that we associated with each other was mostly not just through tournaments, but it was outside of tournaments as well. And the relationship that we had was pretty good. I would say I started to notice, Justice and James's accomplishments extensively when they were around the master level as well. Around the master level, I would say around 2100, because me myself, I grew up in Westchester area, Westchester County, and James and Justice, they grew up in the city and in Brooklyn. So I would say the times that we did meet up were mostly at chess events. But when it comes to, I would say, our accomplishments, they're very similar in a way. We all became a master at the age of 12 years old. Um, we did a lot of, um, I would say I, we did a lot of giving back to the community, especially during our high school days. We traveled to Washington D.C. in order to give different simuls to the communities in the area. So our time together outside of the competitive aspect was very, very well. And now our communication is still intact. We are all doing mostly the same activities, chess coaching, and occasionally I train with Justice Williams. Um, but for the most part, yeah, it was a great group.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're almost underselling it a little bit, and I'm gonna oversell it, or I think I'm not overselling. I'm gonna appropriately sell it, which is that yourself, Justin and James, really had a national acclaim, yeah, particularly in your middle school and high school years, because it was such a revolutionary thing to just have three young black men basically all at the same time, all surging, all super talented. And it's really cool to know now, because I really didn't know. It's also really cool to know that you guys were also working together and had a good relationship on some level, because some of that stuff can be contrived, people just grouping people together for various reasons. And to know that, well, actually you guys were in relatively close proximity and could kind of, you know at least engage with each other on a personal level, on some level, is pretty cool. Do you feel like stylistically, you guys had different games or similar? Because I also recall, back then, that there was, at least personally, I felt like your games were different, and I didn't know if they were different because, you guys, sparred with each other and distinguish yourselves in that way, or whether it was independent of working together. So I guess what I'm asking here is, did you kind of recognize that your styles were different, and did you get a chance to kind of train with each other when you were all like 12, 13, 14?
Um, I recognized at a young age that our styles were quite different from each other. I noticed that me myself, I'm more of a positional style player. We do have some similarities. I think most players at the higher level, they do share some positional aspects that they do well in. But I would say Justice, he has a different positional style from myself. He has some strategic idea, uh, some strategic positions that he incorporates in his games. Whereas I really enjoy the positional aspects. James, he's a very dynamic chess player himself. Um,
Swashbuckler.
yeah, very, very dynamic. But we all intertwine in different ways. But at the end of the day, I would say, in terms of uh, connecting and training with each other, at a younger age, we didn't do so as much. Um, but I find ourselves training, nowadays more. It's kind of weird because I would say now it's me, myself, and Justice who are more competitive. James, he's more of a chess teacher, but he still trains, here and there with me, uh, and we keep in contact. We have a good relation, but in general, I wish we did train more when we were younger because perhaps, that formation and just having a group that we can rely on, in terms of sharing maybe ideas, and maybe different types of concepts to help us grow. That would have maybe changed a lot.
Yeah, I'm particularly envious of those that actually have had those experiences in some way. I think, especially when you're younger, there's this impulse to kind of be a bit more siloed, just because, um, you know, well, we were all kind of thrust into the middle of the computer era at some point. But there's
Right.
this almost this idea that, if two people are climbing the ladder's gonna break, when that's actually not necessarily the case. When
Exactly.
it's actually the synergy in some ways that can make us stronger. And um, so yeah, like it's cool, honestly, that you had any real meaningful relationship, because sometimes the impulse would be like, oh, this is a competitor, this isn't someone I should be dealing with. And it sounds like that at least was not the case at all. So that's pretty cool. Um, what made you kind of alluded to having some positional style and dynamic, but I always feel that, when you're rising, you recognize something about yourself that you do better than others. What did you feel you did better than others as you were, kind of climbing upward? Because when you had this very kind of quick ascent, this quick trajectory, what did you find you were doing in your bag? What was in your bag that was kind of, really electric?
Um, I think growing up, um, one of my, I would say, positive or main strengths was my mental fortitude. Um, Now, I could also relate to, some of the skills that I had over the board, but I would say for the most part, my mental fortitude is pretty strong, regardless of the result that I had, like a win or loss at a young age. I had like a poker face coming out of the tournament hall. My dad would never like depict whether I won or lost. I just took the game as it was, and I just was ready for the next game. So I think that's what helps me, growing up. As I got older, dealing with life, of course, this mental fortitude is not as strong, but I still try to develop it. Now, over the chessboard, I think my bag uh, was, I would say for the most part, it's hard to say uh, because there are many moments in my career where I had um, great positions coming from the middle game and coming from the end game specifically. I wouldn't say the opening at an early stage of my career was one of my strengths, but as I started to work more on my game, that started to develop. Um, I would say the end game was my bag if I had to choose. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no, mental fortitude is extremely important and something that's kind of rare in young players. So for you to have developed that super early, it kind of all makes sense now why you had the success that you did. And frankly, that was something that personally getting over losses early was not an easy thing for me. Where I would remember them and they'd kind of linger and you know they would carry over into the next game, particularly in the US when you're playing 2 games a day a lot.
Right.
You just how were you able to just move on? Or how was it how did you rationalize games to move on to other ones?
Um, the thing is, growing up, I played a lot of chess games. Uh, we're talking about rated games. It could be rapid, classical, and I would say because of this experience and through this practice and losing, hundreds of games, I've developed some form of, I would say, a numb ability to a loss, right? Where if I lose a game, I just know it's just going to benefit me some way somehow. But I also know that I may be doing something wrong myself. So um, how did I build this is it's hard to say, but it's just through the development of just not worrying about the results and just continuing to focus on the next game. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's fast forward to when you actually became a master. Um, what was the what was the game, or at least what was the excuse me, what was the anticipation going into that game? Did you kind of, or that tournament, were you aware of how close you were? And then what happened immediately afterward?
Um, yes, I knew that going into the tournament that I needed about maybe a little over 20 or 15 points in order to get over the 2200 mark. Um, my first round, I played a lower rated player, which was a pretty good victory, and I believe it was like my second round where I played another master. His name was Leonardo. I forgot the last name. However, in this game, I knew about the title and everything, but I just wanted to enjoy the game, and I felt that if I go into the game just with the mindset that I'm going to treat it like any other game, regardless of the results, I can't be too upset with myself. And I recall it was a game. It was a game where we had a very balanced position in the end game. I believe it was a queen. It was a major piece end game, a queen and two rooks for each side, and three pawns, uh, each on the same side of the board. and I found a way to outplay him and trick him in the end game. Of course, there are better ways to win the game, but I guess with the game of chess, you do need some help of some help of your opponent in order to win the game. Yeah.
Oh, no question. It takes two to tango. So,
Oh yeah.
we know you can't win without some help. So,
Yes, exactly.
uh, and then what did you feel like this when you accomplished that at such a young age, recently? Did you feel like this pressure to do more because I mean, you really were a sensation. So, you're 12. You are young, and people are like, wow, Josh is here. People know about you when you go to every tournament. I'm sure there was also some media coverage around that time around your success. How did life at all change for you, or your expectations around chess change for you?
Um, my expectations with chess did grow. I wanted to achieve more. I wanted to become an IM, and I wanted to, see where uh, chess will take me. At the same time, I also was, interested in, other activities like sports, school activities. I was playing a few instruments during the time too. So I was young and engaged with a lot of, things that a kid would be involved in. But I didn't put too much pressure on myself, nor did my family. So it was mainly up to me and how I wanted to direct my career. Looking at it now, I would say I think I did a pretty good choice. I finished school. I graduated at Webster University in 2020. And now I'm just enjoying the game. I'm teaching full time, and occasionally I play chess when I have the opportunity. But I would say for the most part, you know, I wish I did, have more time to invest and focus on my goals and prioritize them a little bit more. But that's the thing with life. Sometimes it gets in the way, and I'm still satisfied with what I've became.
Yeah, and I can recall quite distinctly when it was a real sensation when you got your first GM norm. If I'm not mistaken, it was at the North American.
Right.
It was in Vegas.
In
Am
Vegas,
I mistaken there?
right in 2015.
And I mean, it was sensational because um, you were an FM still at the time, and FMs don't normally make GM norms. Like it's a In fact, I know off the like at the top of my head, I believe there are only a few players that have gone from FM to GM without the IM title. And there was real buzz around, like, oh my God, is like this is insane. This is sensational. Um, what was that experience like when you had this basically tournament for the ages?
Yeah, so North American 2015 was definitely my most remarkable events in my chess career. Um, I was actually going into the event. My grandmother had passed away. I would say a week before, and my dad, he had actually originally planned to come with me to the event, and he wanted to be there to support because he knew how much I wanted to do well, and he wanted to support me for the events. He came for half of the events, and then he had to fly out to go support the family, his mother. But for the most part, I was actually very determined. This was one of the events where I was, focused to a very high degree. And every game that I sat across my opponents, I just wanted to win. And if I couldn't win, try to find a way not to lose, right? And of course, that's what the top players do best. But in general, my game was pretty sharp at the time. I was studying a lot, and of course, it paid off.
All right, so you're obviously very eloquent and diplomatic around this tournament, how it went. I want to know, what was it like in the last rounds? Because what like basically going into the last few rounds, you have a chance in some way, shape, or form. Me personally, I don't even want to really think about it until round nine because people always like, oh, I almost had a norm, but round six or whatever. And it's like you're never really almost did anything until you have one game to go with the situation in hand. So, what was your mindset when you were going into round nine? When you know what's at stake, or even round eight, if you will. What was your mindset there? Are you listening to music? Who are you talking to? Who's in your corner? What's this scenarios look like when you're right there, but you still have more work to do?
Right. So, no, the feeling is very uplifting and thrilling when you're right there and you have, one more game in order to accomplish that goal. I remember round nine, I was playing against Jeffrey, and Jeffrey Zhang, by the way. And in that
That's
game,
that's good context for folks at home. Can you say that one more time, Josh? Who are you playing in round nine?
Jeffrey Zhang,
Yeah,
yeah,
Jeffrey Shong. I think that's a name
yes.
that most of the chess community will know.
But no, Jeffrey is he's a great guy. But yeah, it was a game. I believe, if I recall clearly, I think it was some form of a closed Sicilian with G3. But I actually was preparing this line before the game, and I just wanted to play solid. And Jeffrey offered me a draw in a position where I guess he felt that he was maybe slightly uncomfortable there. And I, of course, accepted the draw. I'm going to get a GM norm, and it's a perfect way to end the tournament. But the feeling, I mean, I felt like I was, playing at the grandmaster level. So I believe when I only have one grandmaster norm, but if I ever get in that situation or that scenario again, I think it's a level-headed mindset that you need to keep because any distraction can alter any decisions that you make over the board. And I was just there, focused on not just getting the title because that was not really my mindset, but focused on getting a good result within the game. And in general, I believe my favorite game in that tournament was against Bai Jinshi, and that was round seven, and that was a Grunfeld. And in that game, in general, throughout the whole tournament, I was well prepared, but I feel that I gave my best in this round. Um, and I think preparation was key for me in terms of the reason of why I got the result that I did. Every game, I went, into the next round. I actually was very well prepared. Who was in my corner? My family, friends, um, the immediate family. Um,
So just to dig in the weeds there a little bit, are you someone that during the tournament is like venting or calling people and like that like talk complaining about this thing that didn't go your way, or like giving someone a recap, or like are you someone that internalizes that during the tournament, or do you kind of decompress or unload on other people?
um, I don't do well with keeping, my sorrows and regrets to myself. I have to let it all out. So I am the type to make a phone call to like a close friend and, tell him how, stupid I am about, myself. And if they play chess, I'll relate to the game and, try to share some ideas there. But so I'm the type to let it out. But in general, I guess it works differently for everybody. Um, but during that tournament, I had nothing to let out, but just pure joy.
No doubt, no doubt. So you let me shift gears a little bit to like chess philosophy, if you will, because you've given me a really good. I've gotten a really good sense of your your kind of your internal constitution. You're pretty resolute. You're pretty much the calmest chess player I've spoken to recently. I mean, you basically are telling me that I'm like you're basically saying, man, I was really resolute, and just one game at a time, and just trying to do well, and not too high, not too low. That's really difficult to manufacture.
Mm.
Do you? What about your playing style and sort of what you're trying to do over the board? Do you think that there was a way that you wanted to play the game that you felt gave you the best chance to win, or did it vary depending upon who you played with? Like, what was your approach?
So that's a good question, and I think that's where this correlates to like the preparation. Um, and as far as that is concerned, I think me myself, as most people know, I'm a very down to earth, calm player, and I feel like the opening of the chess game that you play sometimes resonates, your personality, and most of my games, if you check it out, are very like positional and maybe dry, quiet, and then sometimes I have a few fireworks when I'm feeling pretty good. But in general, I'm very positional, and in terms of preparing for an opponent or specifically that event, what I like about my style of play is sometimes I have a tendency of pulling a very dynamic position out of my hat, or very strategical battle. I'm very flexible in other terms. I do like positional styled games. I may try to keep it positional, but I can also change gears. And I think that's very important in terms of anyone trying to develop their chess game. If you do find style of play that you enjoy, that's good. But you could also try to sharpen it by implementing another form of into your bag, as we would call it, right? But
I'm trying, Josh. I'm trying really hard. It's hard to stray away from, the old dog, new tricks thing. It's very real. So,
oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, not everyone had that ability that you have to kind of shift gears as easily, because it was something that I recognized in you as well, where you played a lot of stuff, and not a lot of people stick to their stuff, but you're someone that was a little less predictable, which
Could be good or bad.
particularly in the computer environment, though, must have had its strengths. Uh, yeah, like of course there's challenges as well when you're mixing things, but I'm sure it was definitely more of a positive than a negative.
Yeah, I think the ability to change gears, it did have its pros. It also had its moments where I tend to find myself all over the place, and that could be something where you need a time where you need to readjust. But at this point of my career, my rating has been very topsy turvy, and I think that can be due to my style of play. But now with a more solid approach, I find to be a little bit more steady in my play. Yeah.
That actually is a good segue to where you are today, what you're doing today, and you mentioned that you're coaching full time, but you still have playing ambitions as well, and it's a challenge, right, to balance teaching people who for the most part are going to be um, considerably worse than you, or basically not at your level, but teach them well, and then also try to refine your own game. How do you do that? Like, is it something that's easy to kind of compartmentalize different responsibilities, or is that something that's challenging? How do you negotiate that?
Um, this is definitely something that's not easy to negotiate firsthand. Firsthand experience, I should say. But um, me myself, I'm not an expert within switching gears between teaching and focusing on my own studies and own chess game. But the way that I tackle it, is by trying to devote at least, some time into the day for myself, whether it's 30 minutes or to an hour. I think any form of practice is beneficial to one's game. And generally, if the results are unpredictable and they're inevitable, right? So at least in terms of out of your control. But I would say if you dedicate to the game, I guess it'll show some love back, right? So that's just how it works. Yeah.
I really that's really well said. When you dedicate something to the game, you'll get some love back. That's really well said. Um, I guess the other thing, I just want to emphasize and highlight, at least within the context of Black History Month here, is that you're one of those dudes. You're one of you've ultimately etched yourself in a very kind of esteemed contingent of really talented Black chess players in America, and it wasn't easy to do this. It wasn't easy to get as far as you've gotten. Um, uh, there certainly must have been challenges along the way, and uh, I did you feel that you were did you feel that there weren't a lot of players uh, that looked like you when you were younger? Did you recognize that what you were doing was really different, or was that something that you're able to look back on now and maybe have that perspective that maybe you didn't have at the time?
Um, that's a great question. I would say when I was younger, um, there were definitely not a lot of young African Americans, young Black kids playing chess. Chess has definitely grown a lot during these last few years, the past decade, and especially after the COVID era. There's been like a boom in the chess worlds, and I do find a little more people of color playing the game of chess, which is great to see. But in the past, during my time, and I guess your time as well, I would I could only speak for myself, but I would say that there were not a lot of African Americans other than you, myself, the names that we've mentioned before. Um, but I wish that there were more. Um, Nowadays, and in contributing to Black History Month, um, I just want to shout out anyone who is of a color and is into the game of chess. It's great to see because like we say, chess is a game. It's a mental exercise, and it's I would say it's a game that you know um, that shows that anyone is able to play the game. And for example, you don't have to be light colored to play this sport. Uh, for the most part, it's a game where you can relate to life and connect with a lot of abilities like critical thinking and a lot of personal abilities that you may have never explored within yourself. You can learn through the chessboard. Um, and to answer your question, Casa, about you know the African Americans in the past and how does it have any effect on me today? Nowadays, I would say it doesn't have as much as effect as it did back in the day. Back in the day, I wish I did have like a group that I can relate to, other than the other two, James Justice or yourself, and any other young players growing up. But seeing the young faces like Brewington Hardaway and Tani and all of these promising juniors, it's great because they are the face of the African American youth that are growing up and showing that we can do this.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about your story is that um you had this ability within chess, um and you took it pretty far, but you also didn't leave some of your other, interests and so on behind either. Like a lot of people that do ultimately wind up going pretty far in it, kind of divorce themselves from other interests through high school, and it sounded like no, you still were into music, you still were into sports, you still had good relationships with friends, and you demonstrated that there was another way. And I don't think that's something that should be taken for granted, because so many really young talents uh, are siloed in chess because that is the only thing. And I think there's a great gift to that if it all works out in a really perfect way. But if there's any kind of deviation from that path, there's nothing else to kind of fall back on. And you elected, and maybe this was joint influence with parents, but you made a decision to say, you know what, like I really love chess. I also want to, I also like other things. I also want to finish school, and chess is going to always be a really important part of my life. And there's always that trade off of whether you should be, you know, full speed ahead in this one arena, or go and uh, be in a jack of many trades type of dynamic. And there are trade offs to both, but I think the decisions you made are to be respected, and they're a path that is also very viable.
Appreciate it. I generally wanted to keep a balanced lifestyle. Um, I had an opportunity to, accept the decision of being homeschooled actually in high school. Um, I considered this opportunity very seriously, and I decided to decline it and go to college and focus. Well, the thing is, growing up in my household, school was a priority before chess, and making sure the education was done first was important. So I respected that, and I respected that for myself. So I accomplished, um, my my goals within that. And as far as maintaining that balanced lifestyle and including the chess, it's not always easy because you know as we know, as chess players, you have to sacrifice, especially if you want to um, you know improve. And that's with all things, especially in sports. But yeah, I had to sacrifice, times with being with friends, times, going out, to socialize, or, do any other activities, because, I had a passion for the chess game. So, um, yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, it wasn't easy keep maintaining that balance, but I think it was a good choice for
And
me.
I'm just also going to just sprinkle on there. You mentioned time several times in several instances. I'm also going to mention money, right? There were I mean, many tournaments you played that were not in New York, that required travel, that required tournament entry fees, that required hotel rooms, that required a litany of costs and expenses that are super challenging, and continue to present as obstacles for talent. And so I don't know the extent to which your dad was the sole investor, proprietor, so on in your journey. But it's not. But that it's time and money, right?
Oh yeah. Chess is not, a cheap sport. It's definitely a sport where if you're dedicated, you're going to invest a few bucks. But in general, I did play a lot of events within my career, and thankfully, I did have some support of my father. I have to thank him, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to play as many events. So yeah, shout out to him. But you know, growing up, I wish that um, I had, of course, a few more sponsorships as a young black male. I think that support could, lead to a lot of, excellence. And, for the youth nowadays, I hope, that they do have that support, because, that support is good in general. Yes.
Yeah, it can't be said better than you just did. The financial support really matters, and yeah, it's a big part of how far our talent ultimately will go or be realized. So no question about it. Um, Josh, it's been a pleasure. I just again want to give you your flowers. You were someone when I was playing, and again, you were a few years younger than me, but I was like, man, who is this guy? This guy is this guy is good, man. Like, and it was really really good to see you succeed. I was really happy when you got your first GM Nor. I mean, it's really good to see, and I'm keen on you continuing to play and see some really good results, because I still think I think the best chess is in front of you, honestly. Thanks to you for sitting down and doing this with me, and I know our community will appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Casa. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're someone who I actually looked up to, Casa. And I wish to see you become a GM yourself. And I appreciate what you're doing, and giving back to, the community. And I hope everyone, appreciates this.